Feels like one is on television.
That's right. We are on television. What are you talking about, Prantik? All right. Welcome to a new episode of the Future Proof You podcast for Working Dad. And today with me, I've got Prantik Mazumdar, who is building happy marketer in harmony with his family, with his wife Dipti and his kid Ayaan, and from Singapore. How you doing, Prantik?
Thank you so much, Julian, for having me. I'm doing great. Like I said, it's a public holiday, so a nice long weekend. So yeah, no complaints. Of course, homebound, but that's what we're here to talk about.
Cool. And do you want to introduce us a little bit your family?
Absolutely. So yeah, my immediate family is in Singapore. I have a lovely wife, Dr. Dipti, who has to go to work even on a public holiday. So she works in accident and emergency. So as they say, 24/7. It's been especially pretty hard for her given the ongoing COVID situation. So the work stress is pretty high. I have a 3.5 year, well, I should say nearly four. He's going to turn four next month, a 4 year
Nice.
toddler who's at home. Right now, as we speak, I've just requested him to kind of step out. He's quite obedient. So yeah, it's been amazing to kind of spend time with him. He goes to preschool, but of course it's holiday for him as well. So that's three of us here. Both are my wife and my parents. They are back in India. My parents are in a city called Pune near Mumbai, and hers are in Bangalore in southern India.
And how they doing at the moment in India with COVID?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I think it's going to be for my parents. It's going to be about nearly 120 days of constant lockdown. It's pretty tough.
Wow. Yeah.
Both Pune and Bangalore have been pretty badly hit, and of course not easy because there's no domestic help as well because obviously everyone's locked down. So it's pretty
Yeah.
stressful that way. But I must say that for both sets of parents, it's amazing to see how well they have acclimatized and they're getting work done at home. They're spending more time at home. Of course, they get a chance to speak with their grandson very often. In fact, I think my mom's speaking to him right now as we speak to kind of keep him entertained. And
Babysitting from India. I love it.
no. And yeah, they kind of, I think both sets of parents are very active using digital technology. So my parents do a lot of social cultural events. So they're doing tons of events online on StreamYard and Zoom. My in-laws, they are into meditation, so they have lots of classes. In a program called Art of Living, as well as my father-in-law is learning Sanskrit. So it's amazing to see how
Wow.
they have taken to digital to kind of ensure there's entertainment in life.
I love it. Like your parents are on StreamYard.
Yeah,
Great.
it's amazing how I speak StreamYard and Zoom with my parents and in-laws. So yeah, the world is a very
Oh, no, I love it. Like with my mom I'm on WhatsApp. I'm like scroll up. Yes, you'll have the video. And yours are on StreamYard. I love it.
as well. Like very recently, I had to explain to my parents the difference between the paid Zoom account versus the free account. The whole 40
Okay.
minute thing. So, but it's amazing. The companies are getting mature in terms of making products more user friendly. At the same
Yeah.
time, the senior generation they realize they have to kind of keep abreast, right? They have to keep up. So it's a good tension and battle between the products and the users.
But and I guess you've been educating your parents, right? I mean, like you had a company in digital marketing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you
So
want to
yeah,
tell us a little bit more about that?
of course, yeah. So Happy Marketer, this is a company that a partner and I started about a decade ago in Singapore. So my background is both Rachit, my business partner, and I. We came to Singapore 20 years ago to study here. I grew up in India and Indonesia. Rachit, my business partner, grew up in India. We met in college. Long story short, we've been great friends, and we started the company in 2009 June. And just about a year and a half ago, after a 10-year stint, we sold it to a Japanese entity called Denso. And
Yay!
yes, it's a bit of an exit, so to speak, but it's we're still very much active, an active owner in the business and actively running the business. So it's still business as usual. So it's been great fun. But yeah, coming to the fact, running a digital marketing business is great fun because the field's constantly changing, right? When we
Yeah.
started, it was pretty much only about Google and Facebook. Today, you have Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok, which is in so much of controversy everywhere. So, and there's Salesforce, Adobe on the Martech side. So there's just so much excitement and so much
Oh,
that's happening. So it's, yeah.
Oh yeah,
very
no, it
exciting.
keeps you on your toes, definitely. Like, I mean, what do you think of Reels? Do you guys have Reels in Singapore now?
Yeah, just on a pilot mode. So I've kind of
Yeah.
tried it out. To be honest, it seems very much a replica. In fact, I think the one of the product owners from Facebook, Instagram actually said that just the way they kind of lifted Snapchat into WhatsApp stories and Insta stories. I think this is another lift off. So yeah, I mean, honestly, there doesn't seem to be much innovation, so to speak, as far as the product is concerned. But I'm sure
No,
it'll do well, given the
but
user base.
well,
I'm sure
they're
it'll do
so
well.
big they can just copy, take it, and get away with it. I was just a bit disappointed because I'm really enjoying the TikTok format, but I can't. I talk so much. I can't stay within 15 seconds. So my video goes, and now on Reels, I'm like 15 seconds.
I think it's the current generation's way of keeping us,
I
quiet.
know. I
Talk too much.
can't. I mean, I'll try to keep us within 25 minutes today, but it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get started with what's your why? What's your reason for, like you've been building that business for 8 years, and then yes, you got an exit, but realistically, they kept you to run it because it's not going to run on its own. And at
Yeah.
the same time, now you've got your toddler Ayaan, who's just about to turn 4. How do you balance both, and why do you balance both? Why is that important for you to balance both?
Yeah. I think it's been a struggle, to be very honest, right? So I started the business when I was single. Then 2014 is when I got
Hmm.
married, and 2016 is when we had the kid. And so 2016 to 2019 was a period probably the busiest for the business, right? Especially
Mm.
pre-exit. We literally had to do everything in the business. And if I look back, that there's a period where I realized that I'm not spending as much time that I would have liked with my family, with myself. And there were occasional moments of guilt, and there was this whole struggle of how do I balance this all, or is it even possible? And then I read somewhere that it's not, there's nothing called balance, but it's all trade-off. And that really struck me somewhere, that what are the trade-offs that I want to make, and what trade-offs are worth it. And then really started spending a lot of time thinking about this, discussing this with my wife. And I think she came up, she had a book in her bookshelf, which I'm sure many of us may have read, or we may have seen this framework on LinkedIn called Ikigai, right? The Japanese principle of,
Yes.
right? The three concentric bubbles. And that really hit home for me. I started asking myself, what's my Ikigai? What is it that I really want to achieve? And that probably will drive my trade-off. And so the more I thought about it, the three things that really kind of crystallize my why is, one is legacy. What legacy do I want to leave, irrespective of how long do I live? 30 years, 50 years, 100 years. What's that legacy? What do I want people to remember me by? And that's important because, otherwise it's very easy to get into this rut of working, 16-hour work days, if not more, and working on weekends. So that kind
What
of
for,
made,
right?
yeah, what am I doing all this for, right? So I think that element of legacy, I think, is a critical one. The next is impact. That, do I just want to run a business to make money, or do I want to touch lives? Do I want to touch lives through my business? Do I want to touch lives through charity? Do I want to touch lives through sport? I'm a big cricket fan. So even through cricket, I get to meet so many people. I get to have conversations. I get to, so to speak, touch lives, through the sport, right? So that,
But you did have a life somewhere.
yes,
You have cricket.
yeah, but you see, that's the thing. So for me, cricket is also me time. Work is obviously a lot of me time. Then the question is, hey, where's the time for my wife and for my child, who was just about a year and a half when all this realization was coming. And the third is something that I've always believed is peace of mind. Right at the end of the day, having gone through different ups and downs in life, I've realized that nothing is more valuable to me than peace of mind, than health. And at the end of the day, if I can't sleep peacefully, if I am not energized when I wake up in the morning, all this entrepreneurship and money,
Doesn't happen.
money gives you power, but yeah, it's not at the cost of peace of mind. So
Uh-huh.
those three elements of legacy, impact, peace of mind, really kind of, that juxtaposition really helped crystallize my why. That whatever that I do, the decisions that I make, the trade-offs that I make. So, for example, if I decide not to go to work tomorrow, that's absolutely fine. My business partner and my colleagues would understand because I'm quite transparent about this ikigai that, maybe I'm taking work some time off because I want to spend just maybe taking my family for a walk in the park, right? Or on a nature trail because that's going to give me peace of mind, right? So I think
you will not feel guilty about it. Is that what you mean by peace of mind? Because it's
that's
your
right.
trade-off. Okay, you've decided of
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
The key word is trade-off, and it's a deliberate
Yeah.
trade-off. I think many a times most of us are not deliberate in life. We just let life happen to us.
Yeah, we
And
drift, right?
yeah, so I think that's my suggestion and advice to all dads, all parents, everyone, that just think it's not very easy to arrive at this, but think hard about this as to what's the deliberate trade-off you're willing to make. And I think to me those are those three whys that help me do that.
Sorry, writing notes here. That's beautiful, and I'm so glad that you gave an example. And what's the legacy then that you wanna leave? Does it involve your family? Does it involve your business? What do you have in mind for that legacy?
Yeah. So I think, the way I define legacy is not really in terms of wealth or a company, but it's really about I ask myself, what do I want people to remember me by? And I think it's not unidimensional. So there is an element of family, there is an element of social work, there's an element of business for sure. So, for example, even after I've had my, partial exit, I think one element of legacy in the business world is okay. You know what? I have created a successful business. Hundreds of people have been employed. That's a good feeling. But at the same time, now in my current phase, I'm also trying to help other entrepreneurs. So I wear a couple of hats, advisory hats with local universities, INSEAD and NUS. And I try and do as much mentorship and advisory with those universities. I also help other entrepreneurs by investing in their startups as a venture investor or angel investor, because that kind of gives me a chance to give back both financially as well as through time and impact. So, yeah. So to me, I think I would want to be remembered, or my legacy to be around someone who has been there for people and someone who's been there to guide and help people. Either in their personal or professional lives. So it's really about the legacy for me is about being there by the side of people to help them in their professional and personal lives. And I think there's an element of family, business, and social work interspersed there.
And ourselves. And I like the fact that by being an entrepreneur in residence and also an investor, like you're capable to talk to them about, yes, how are we going to future-proof the business, but how you're going to think about you and how you're going to think about your family, because you've been through it and you've been through your own ikigai. And so do you mention, do you question them on their ikigai sometimes?
Absolutely. In fact, with every entrepreneur that I interact with, the first question always starts about them as to what gives them joy, peace of mind, mental health. It's such an important thing today because a lot of people just don't like to talk about it. So I think before any business, because especially early stage businesses, as they say, you may start with one idea, but 5 years down the road, you may be doing something else. But the constant is the people or the team that you surround yourself with. Right? So, absolute. What's your ikigai? What gives you joy? Your mental well-being. How do you build resilience in yourself?
Yeah.
How are you managing with your partner? I think these, especially in Asia, these are topics that are not really spoken about very openly by men and women. So absolutely, that's a
100%. In my accelerators, in my co-working space, and my MBA in entrepreneurship, every time I will start a mastermind and say, okay, so from a scale from 0 to 10, how are you feeling today? And the first time around, they go, what? Like, you mean my business? And I say, you. And then you get surprised because some people go, well, out of 10, and 10 being like the best and 0 being, oh, I'm going to stay in my bed. And they start saying 3. You're like, oh, whoa, okay. Like, now we can talk about them and not even get into the business. But they will not have raised that issue with us if we don't ask the question. So I'm so glad that that's a question you asked, because
it's a great lesson that you shared. I think very few people ask, how are you doing? And it can it can make for an awkward conversation or a pause, but it's so important because that's a great trigger for someone to actually feel how am I feeling, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good lesson. Good to hear that you do that.
Well, especially because as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to upsell a company, right? Yes, everything's going all right. We've got traction. Did I say the word traction? We've got traction. Traction. But yeah, and then suddenly you don't hear from that person for 3 months because that person just had a depression, and we don't hear from them. All right. So let's go further into the how. So I like what you said before. You said you didn't have time for myself, you didn't have time for the family, and then you were focused on your business. So what's the how? What is your secret weapon to either future-proof you, so look after you or your family or your business? You can pick one of the three.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is a brilliant topic of future proofing and thinking about deliberate thoughts and actions that one needs to take so that hopefully the future is future proofed. And especially given the times we are in, I think it's all the more important for us to invest time in thinking and feeling about this. So I think the few things that I kind of try and I guess it's probably either built naturally over the years thanks to my upbringing or thanks to my time in college and at work. I think one is about really optimism. I think I've always believed that one needs to be an optimist, and something that I guess over time comes naturally. In fact, I have an internal mantra for me that I personally tell myself and I write down in certain places is dare to dream. Because at least when you're dreaming, you got to dare, right? Life may actually turn out to be very different, but why be miserly and why not be gutsy in your dreams? So I think it's very important that to be optimistic about a particular situation, look at the glass half full. Sure, the outcome would be different. And I think when I say optimistic, it's not about being dreamy. I think it's really being about looking at the positives, thinking about the variables in your control. What can you control? And if you can control a couple of things, can we be optimistic and positive and do our best? So I genuinely believe that gives an extra push. So I think being able to dare to dream and be optimistic is critical. Number two is I have a philosophy of surround yourself with goodness. It's a philosophy that I've built over the years in Happy Markup that has two parameters. One is about surrounding yourself with good people. And when I say good, I'm referring to people who add value to your life through conversations, by doing activities that excite you. And the other is content. I'm a massive consumer of content on a daily basis. Could be so for example, today we started our day with Michelle Obama's podcast, episode 2. I read a lot of articles or books because I believe that it's very important to surround your mind and body with good, relevant content. And could be any topic, fiction, non-fiction, whatever it is, so that it kind of nourishes and enriches your mind. Because the more you put in, your brain then automatically starts processing it, thinking about it, synergizing stories about it. It just kind of changes the frame of your mind. So that kind of drives thereafter what you do and hence what you achieve. So I think it's very important to surround yourself with goodness, both in terms of people and content. And third, I've always believed that it's important to have an open mind to explore and experiment. I think a lot of us, because of our education or the systems we come from, we tend to have a very myopic view and a very unidimensional view to life, and we're very stuck up with what we believe is right. But again, I think it's important sometimes for life to let life happen and then process it and kind of explore, hey, what else can I do? What else can I do differently? Can I try something new? It could be food. It could be, some people have this very interesting habit of wanting to meet a new person every week, just to open your minds, just to try and take in so many different experiences. Even this conversation, right? We connected on LinkedIn. We said, hey, you know what? There's something that connects us. Can we do this interesting live podcast together? So I think that kind of experimentation, the attitude of having an open mind just creates new opportunities. So I think, yeah, in summary, these three elements of daring to dream and being optimistic, surrounding yourself with good people and content, and thirdly, having an open mind to explore and experiment. Those you can say are my secret weapons that kind of help me live my why. That's the way I look at it.
I like that because they are. Oh, I can hear me.
Is that fine now?
Hang on, I'm just going to mute.
Sure.
What about now?
Okay. I'm good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So my question, it's you've managed to build the three together, because I was going to ask you, how are you an optimist? How do you stay an optimist? But then you told us that you like to surround yourself with goodness, like people and content. So that helps you being an optimist. That's because right. It drives that energy. And then once you've got that energy, well, then it's so much easier to go and explore and experiment, right? When you've got that optimism and that so it's like bam, bam, bam. Like
That's right. It kind of, it's a muscle memory. Most things in life, it may not be easy. I'm not saying that every day I wake up being an optimist. There are some very shitty days, but it's a question of once you build that rhythm and muscle memory, you just need those triggers. Maybe there's one podcast you hear or an article you read, it kind of triggers that muscle memory and you start getting on that optimistic chain. And as they say, right, these are these vibes that you start giving out. Hopefully, these are positive vibes that kind of create a good positive chain. So, so you're right. These are connected.
So you mentioned like a content from Michelle Obama. Is there and that's you experimenting and trying new things? Is there some content, podcast or newspapers that you intentionally go back to them when you feel you need that optimism and you want a sure thing? Like, is there some that you can recommend, or is that just
Absolutely. The two that I will recommend to everyone, one is, and the beauty is they're just 2-minute podcasts every episode, and to me they are literally day changing every day. So one is the Daily Stoic. I'm a big believer in stoicism. So it's amazing the clarity of thought that kind of comes out in those 2 to 3 minute episodes. The other one that I listen as often as he publishes is a gentleman called Naval Ravikant. So if you're on Twitter, it's at Naval, Naval, or you can find it on Spotify. Absolutely brilliant gems. And he talks about the startup ecosystem. He talks about philosophy. He talks about education. So I think the Stoicism and Naval, they are probably polymaths. They talk about anything and everything in life. So absolutely would recommend.
I like it because when you started mentioning, what we can control and cannot control, I'm like, huh? Dichotomy of control. That's good.
All of these concepts, honestly, these are, again, when you surround yourself with goodness, this is not my original stuff. It's just stuff that has kind of sneaked in. So
yeah, but it's that common sense, like that 2,000-year-old common sense that comes together, and it makes so much sense. And then Naval, I actually just listened to his book last month, which is, Love Yourself as if your life depends on it. And for very weird reason, as I was listening to it, my son started writing. My son is 10 years old, right? And he loves music. And he started writing a music. And the music is, I love myself. I'm like, how is that possible? And sometimes like the vibe, something I said because I read the book, and now he's got that music, and I know what I'm gonna do. Like when I put the podcast episode together, I always put a song from my son. So now I'm gonna post that one because of Neville. But I didn't know you run a podcast. And yes, 2 minutes podcasts are really good at the moment during COVID. Like we don't commute anymore, so the long one I had to listen to. Cool. I love it because both of them really give you that positive energy, that goodness that you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And have you started to listen to the Daily Stoic for dads? Because it does another version just for dads, just for parents. Yeah.
That's awesome.
If you've done the regular Daily Stoic, then there's another one that you can listen to, which is pretty good.
Okay. Nice.
All right. I really like what you've been sharing. I would like to go a little bit deeper before we finish on experimenting and exploring, because I mean, how can someone like you, who like busy building the business, busy running the business, and you've got your toddler, and your family is not here, your family is in India, and then your wife is 24/7. I mean, when do you have time to go and experiment? Okay.
No, so I think one humbling realization is that if there's one thing constant throughout life is we all have 24 hours, right? And within that, you got to sleep for 7-8 hours. So I think the reality is every day we have about probably 8 to 10 hours from a work perspective, right? And I think it really boils down to prioritization and productivity. So I think and I think a lot of this is possible, again, simply because I'm quite fortunate to have very good people at work in terms of colleagues So it's not that I do everything, right? So we kind of delegate, we kind of figure out who does what. So I think even there, the experimentation element is very critical. That okay, if I have 8 hours today, what are my choices? I could be watching, like today is a public holiday, I could be watching 4 hours of Netflix. But I said, no, you know what? I would rather maybe break that down, maybe
Yeah.
1 hour podcast, maybe 1 hour playtime with my son, 1 hour reading, and then 1 hour preparing for this podcast. So I think it really comes down to that why that you asked. If the
Yes.
why
Yeah.
is clear, you start prioritizing things differently. And it's in those 8 hour blocks, it's very important to experiment that, hey, what am I going to read today, what am I going to eat today, where am I going to go? So generally my wife and I, generally we don't like, I mean, I'm not a very disciplined or routine person. She definitely is, given her work. But even in terms of different aspects of life, we like variety. So we're like, hey, we must try a different cuisine today, and Singapore kind of allows you to do that.
Yeah,
We
yeah, you can.
some nature trails. So we said, you know what, we're going to try and find a place we've never been. And it's fascinating that in the last 4 weeks, suddenly we have been to, 4 different nature trails where in my 20 years, I never knew that existed in Singapore. So I think if we prioritize and we kind of break time down, again, linking it back to the why,
Mm.
suddenly realize that there's so many options in life. It doesn't have to be boring, doesn't have to be routine driven. There's a lot that one can achieve.
Awesome. And do you still explore and prioritize in your when you invest in new companies? Like, do you like diversify, or do you always go for the same type of business? Because you've got your own experience in digital
Sure.
marketing, but do you go outside your area of expertise?
Yes, I do actually. So, I mean, of course, I have a set of broad themes that I typically look at product companies. I typically look at 3 or 4 areas within products. So, I think areas such as digital healthcare, education, or edtech, or it could even be B2B enterprise software. So, these are 3 or 4 areas that are of interest. I look at early stage companies which have some revenue, right? They may not be profitable, but some revenue. And I'm looking at businesses in Southeast Asia and India, for example. So I think I have a broad theme or a few broad constraints or criteria. And within that, I think there's ample opportunity to kind of experiment and explore. So the 5 or 6 companies that I've invested in the last year and a half, yeah, it's been amazing because to invest in those 5 or 6, you'd probably have gone through at least 25, 30 other companies, and then you've kind of handpicked a few.
Okay, so now that I've got you here, I've got quite a few entrepreneurs who are raising, and they find like there's two types of investors at the moment. There's the one who goes, oh my god, like, let's not invest in anything. I want to see where all the dominoes fall. And
Right.
you've got the other investors who go, wow, this is the best time to invest because it's cheaper and you can see who is really motivated or not. Which, are you in one of those categories, or can you see a third one?
No, I'm in the second category. Uh, I definitely think this is the time to invest
Yeah.
at 2 levels. One is, like you said, commercially, there are probably very good deals at hand right now. Also, I think this is also a time, I myself, we ourselves had started our business just at the after the, in the aftermath of the 2008, 2009 crisis. And if you look at it, a lot of good companies typically come out of these crisis situations because they solve for difficult problems, and maybe the entrepreneurs have resilience. So I genuinely think this is a very good time to invest. And it doesn't always have to be cash. I've done a couple of deals where I've got very little equity, but in return for my time as an
Yes.
advisor. So it's a bit of a, because I some deals it's purely cash driven, but some where they needed my advice or my network or whatever help, and they said, look, I'm willing to help. I'm willing to kind of give you X percentage for this much amount of time. So I think there are a lot of different ways to invest time and money.
Yeah.
But I definitely fall in the second camp. Yeah.
But and when you say, I mean, most of the time is actually more valuable than money. And like having your time, having that experience in digital marketing, if you can help an early stage company to skip a few steps and to
Yeah.
give them like raise the brand awareness already, I mean that will be super powerful. So that's
Absolutely. I think my key, if I'm coming in as an advisor, I think my goals are twofold. One is can I help you prevent making some very expensive mistakes? Because in
Yes.
digital marketing, there are lots of myths and lots of expensive steps. If I can help you save money, I think I've done a good job to begin with. And of course, thereafter, if I can help you guide through the right path to build your brand in the right way using the most cost effective tools, that's the next. So yeah, I really think, I think more than money, I mean, money, because right now interest rates are so low, there are different ways of getting money as well. But I think getting smart advice or getting access to a good network, those are invaluable for early stage companies.
I think this is super valuable. Like what you just said, like I help you prevent some expensive mistake, because I think at the moment that's when you don't want to make those expensive mistakes. So that's when it's super valuable. Like, no, do not invest in that industry at this stage. No, don't go with those people. Like they've been really dodgy with everyone. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, those types of advice are so important. It's always hard for the founders, because you're calculating your runway and you need cash for that runway, but at the same time, like that advice that can remove barriers and make things less expensive are super valuable at the same time.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. What would you like to leave your audience, our audience with, and where can we reach you?
So I think I'll answer the second one. I think I'm very accessible on LinkedIn. So you just
Yes,
search
you
my
are.
name. Prantik Mazumdar. Would be fairly quick to respond on a personal message. And then typically I connect with people on, once I'm connected on LinkedIn, typically we connect on WhatsApp. I'm fairly quick on WhatsApp. So, but drop me a message on LinkedIn. Happy to have a chat. In terms of, uh, what can you remember this episode by? I would just say a couple of things. One is, I know times are hard, a lot of people are facing difficulties, but I genuinely believe that there's a lot of goodness that can come out of this current phase. One thing that I have genuinely benefited, and I think this is a message to all the dads, working dads, is the time that you get to spend with your kids and your family. That's priceless. I was just recollecting that 2 years ago I used to do day trips from Singapore to Manila, just to kind of come back and rush to spend a few hours with my kid. And I realized that I mean, whilst that was the norm, but today I'm so happy that when I realize that I can do the same meetings online, and they're probably 10x more productive without spoiling the environment. And I've done the stupid things of flying to a city to take one meeting, and I've been away for the whole day. And sometimes those meetings have been cancelled. But now, thanks to technology, I mean, and the funny thing is, technology existed. It's just that the human will did not, right? What we
It
call
was
the norm.
the
It just,
mindset. Yeah.
so I would just genuinely, tell everyone that make the most of this. Think hard about the why. And again, everyone's why is different. So just because I have a certain why, yours doesn't need to be. But I think it's important that you have that why. And remember, the only thing that I will tell you is there probably is nothing called balance. It's all deliberate trade-offs. So get that why crystallized and then make deliberate trade-offs in your life. And I think just kind of trudge on, and you'll find your way.
Thank you so much, Prantik. I think that's a beautiful time to end this interview. Thank you so much for your time. And now you can go and be with Ayaan now. He must be done with his grandmother.
Thank you so much, Julian, for having me. I'm a big fan of your podcast and what you're doing for working dads. Kudos to you, and wish you all the best. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye.